FaZe finally finished off the Intel Grand Slam. That makes Twists the only human being to have ever done it twice, and I want that to be your inspiration. Because I know your dumbass double picked G2, and now you're trying to bounce back from a 0-point fantasy event, and don't worry, there's plenty of time to do so. Just like FaZe, it only matters how you finish. With the murky waters of online Counter-Strike and Blast's showdowns around the corner, there is plenty of time for your rebound. Don't you fret. You're watching HLTV Fantasyland. I'm Scrawny with the Skinny, and before we dive into the online showdowns, let's talk about my Berserkers. So for playoffs, I had gone all in on the Jack Cinderella story with Vitality, but then I saw Dupree was coming in his place, and so I hit that big red abort button. I got the hell out of town, and instead I went with the scattershot tactic. Double FaZe, a little bit of electronic, just trying to finish somewhere in the top 20% because I didn't really know who was going to make a deep run or ultimately win Pro League. And sure enough, in my mind, it paid off. When you go scattershot, you're shooting for like 20%, and this draft finished top 26%. If it wasn't for a bad quarterfinals versus fours, particularly from Rain and Kerrigan, then I think that they definitely had wheels on this, could have been in the top 15, was sitting around top 12 at one point, but I also had some pretty rough booster activation this time, and so I'll take it. 6 points for the celebrity leaderboard, still sitting top 10, easy. So, Blast Premier Spring Showdown, European and North American event. Single elimination, online. Incredibly weird times. These are the events, barring the events that are right after player breaks, that I think upset potential is at an all-time high. There's a couple things I want you guys to remember when you're drafting for these events. And number one, that is playtime in online CS. Think about teams who are more comfortable in an online environment when you're making these drafts. For that reason, I'm going to go through these quarterfinals, and I'm leaning Cloud9 out the gate. So Ninjas and OG, both struggling somewhat as of late. I recently went with OG over Ninjas for Pro League. I was wrong, but I'm banking on them here. If you look at their European RMR event in the closed qualifier, OG actually did pretty well. So OG win over NIP, Cloud9 over Copenhagen Flames. I know I just said think about online CS. Well, remember that unlike Fnatic, C9 actually played an online qualifier in order to get to this showdown. They have an incredibly long run if they're going to go all the way to Washington, but it's already started pretty well. And I think that with Pro League behind them now and that online recency, Cloud9 should take this opening game pretty easily. Them versus OG up top. On the bottom side, I expect that Big will have done their homework in order to dispatch the likes of Rare Adam. Other teams maybe wouldn't pay Rare Adam the due diligence, but I expect Gob B to be deep in his cave, crafting up the win condition here for Big. And I think that with some of the younger players on Big's roster who are accustomed to online CS, from the We Play Academy leagues, etc., guys like Hyped and guys like Crimbo, Big have a good chance to open with a win. Fnatic versus 9 is curious because 9, a Polish team featuring Hades, plays a ton of online CS, and even within the European online Counter-Strike, we're talking about qualifying for IEM Brazil. The problem with 9 is they're so inconsistent. Just today, they've got a loss in a finals that they should have won, arguably versus Monty. They had a win, a map advantage going into that best of. Point being, Fnatic are going to lose. That's what I'm calling right here for the showdown. If you look at the most picked players, people are really playing these showdowns safe. They're going half Cloud9, half Fnatic. That's essentially all of the most picked players, and those two teams right there. I think that's an error. I think that going in on Big over top of Fnatic will be enough to make a difference to push you into the top side, because everybody's going to pick Cloud9, myself included. I think Cloud9 end up qualifying for Washington. In fact, they're going to run this qualifier all the way to spring finals, no problem. And I think that Big will be the team, regardless of whether Fnatic or 9 pick up their opening game, that'll meet them in that grand final. So as we jump into the draft, remember, I'm Cloud9, I'm Big. So we go straight to C9. Obviously, your eyes are drawn towards Shiro. If you look at that online qualifier that Shiro and Cloud9 just played in order to get to Showdown, Shiro is ahead above everybody else. But I think that when we look at Pro League finals, Axile started to catch up a little bit. And I'm hoping, personally, that because of these price tags and my plans to also draft Big, I'm going to lean in on Axile. He's slightly less expensive, but I think also incredibly reliable, a fair price of $227. Hobbit's been a really good third piece for Cloud9 as of late, online and on LAN, especially in that grand finals versus FaZe that they just lost. But even though Nafany is the cheapest player on this draft, and even though I'm a critic of Nafany's individual level and in-game leadership, I'm going to take Nafany as my second pick. I think that outside of the FaZe Grand Finals, those first two maps were very rough for him. He actually had a couple of really good showing. His impact is very evident, and I think his active play style is something that is worth it in fantasy when I highly expect that they will pick up wins out the gate. So Axile and Nafany are my two Cloud9 picks. I love the fact that a 182 price tag frees up some cash to get into the depths of Big. So with Big, just like Fnatic, just like NIP, we're talking about teams that have online woes at the moment. But there's one player here who I have faith in at the moment. It's weird because with Searson on the team, I feel like Crimbo was really getting overshadowed and was not finding his form whatsoever. But now, I'm in on Crimbo. I'm going to give it to him for this event. I think that especially in an online environment, Crimbo's going to be the guy to lead Big to that finals where they'll fall to Cloud9. And at this point, you do have enough money to pick Favin, Keto, Tabson. Any of these three players could be picked up from Big. And I know that Tabson's always tempting. I know Favin's the second highest rated player on Big in an online environment right now. But I want to keep a little bit of extra money freed up. And I think that in an online environment, a guy like Keto actually thrives. When he goes back to the We Play Academy League, when he plays online qualifiers, we do get a better performance out of Keto for whatever reason or not. There's potential for him to go big. There's also potential for him to flop, but it doesn't really matter to me because I'm still going in on Cloud9. So Keto's my second pick. That's 4 out of the 5 for the European draft. And this is where I want to talk details. Because right now I'm looking at Fiku at 188 or Config and Alexia at 180 or 183,000. The problem is that right now, I do not think Config and Alexi B have anything to offer in online Counter-Strike. These two guys are just struggling at the moment. Go look at Config's last two maps played in the most recent ESL qualifier, whatever the location. Config is down there right now. And does he have a higher potential than Fiku? Yeah, definitely. No doubt in my mind. But how many drafts are we going to sit here and say, I'm sick of thinking about the what he could do. And instead, I'm going to bank in on Fiku, who was in fact, after Flames and Degster, the clearly third highest rated player for OG at that European RMR run. Would I always bank on Fiku? No. Sometimes he sinks my drafts, but with this one particularly being online, I think Fiku ends up providing, and this is the draft for the European Showdown. The Wizards, so they're called. Axile and Nafany for Cloud9 with Defender and Leader on their roles. Support for Crimbo, Headshot Machine for Keto, and unfortunately for Fiku, I'm dropping him on the noob. I think they're getting eliminated by C9 easily. This is a really good role draft too, I think. 50% activation on Defender, 43 for Crimbo on support, and 50 for Headshot Machine on Keto. Ignore Fiku, he's just that fifth piece. So there's the Wizards. But there's not just one Showdown, folks. No, that's right. It's a double whammy. Now we're talking NA, baby. Whew. NA, where even weirder shit can happen. The last North American Blast Showdown was won by Fluxo. That's right, Fluxo ended up stealing a spot in Copenhagen at the end of 2022. I want you to remember just how weird things get, especially because we're talking about North American teams who do not go back and play online qualifiers very often. We have not seen online CS from Liquid in 2023, nor from Furia. We can go back to the IAM Brazil qualifiers where guys like MIBR are competing, Complexity are competing. These are the teams that have been going through the reps. Pain's obviously coming off of an excellent showing at Pro League, exceeding all expectations and taking down Liquid, the favorites of the top side of this quarterfinal bracket. So let's go through my expected wins. Straight up, Liquid dismantle Nouns. I'm sorry, Nouns, not going to happen. Even though I am a wounded Liquid fan at the moment, if they lose to Nouns, don't get me started. Pain versus MIBR, I think, is the hardest game to call. Okay, not only is this a domestic head-to-head, but Pain just showed us a great showing at playoffs in Pro League. MIBR, they dominate qualifiers at the moment. Their online CS back home in Brazil right now is through the roof. Insani, Henny, Anazan. These guys are the three key pieces to what is a very well-oiled machine from MIBR. So on the top side of the bracket, I take Liquid, and I straight up call 50-50 between Pain and MIBR. But whoever wins between Pain and MIBR, I'm taking to the grand finals. I think that much like banking on Fnatic's failures in the European Showdown, you can do the same thing here for Liquid on the North American side of things. Is this a risk? Absolutely. Am I going too far by banking on both Showdowns having significant upsets? Maybe. But in the off chance that these online qualifiers go as crazy as I know they can, I do think it is actually worth banking versus Liquid. So I'm going to say MIBR. I'm going to go for it. I think Henny's op is insane. I think Insani looks like the real deal. And it's more the fact that the third piece for MIBR in Anazan is looking really good as well. You know, Zevi, Skulls, Biguzera, big shout out. I think Pro Leagues was great for him. But we're talking about a team that is flying back to North America in order to play this qualifier. Yeah, they'll have a little bit of time to get into the groove, but go look at MIBR's recent games right now. They are dominating everybody in this region because they are sat at home in an environment where they thrive right now. MIBR has struggled to transition their victories from online and NA to anything on LAN. Look at Kato, look at Pro League. Yes, they fall short there. But this is a team in this specific environment that I think will end up shocking everybody and potentially qualify for Washington. Maybe. Or maybe I'm losing my mind. Maybe. So let's say MIBR in the grand finals from the top side over Liquid in the semifinals. Imperial versus Complexity, super hard to call. I'm just going to go for Complexity. Because bias. And then Furia EG, that's a Furia run. Much like, I think, Cloud9, you have to take the two favorites, one from each side of the quarterfinals, and you need to bank on one of the two, right? To go against both, I think, is to run a massive risk of finishing well under 50% to 100% in a fantasy draft. But if you just bank on one side getting upset, that's where I think you can take it into the top 10 percentile. So that's what I'll be doing versus Liquid while I bank on Furia. Furia versus MIBR in the grand finals of this Showdown. Either team could qualify. I don't know, man. NACS is so weird. So this draft's going to get crazy. We're ending on a bang, baby. With this, I go straight to the Furia camp. When it comes to Furia, Quesarado obviously looking like that tasty 233 treat, but that's too expensive for me. Unfortunately, because look at the price tags on MIBR. Due to the success of them in their region at the moment online, every single player is 204 or more. Henny 219, Insani 218. These are hefty price tags for a team that might just get blown out by Pain at the start. I understand that. But maybe I'm losing my mind. So I'm going to start with MIBR so that you can see what we're working with price-wise down the road. I'm banking on the new kid. I like this kid. Insani is in, and although I would love to pick up Henny for the op domination, I think that Biara and Azan is a great third piece for the team, and so these two players right now to me are interchangeable with Henny. Those are the three pieces that are constantly finding themselves at the top of scoreboards for MIBR, and even though I would love to have Henny, he's just simply too expensive, and ultimately you'll see that that $1,000 difference does end up coming back, right? $218 for Insani or $219 for Henny. I'll take the Rifler. Thank you. Because when I go back down to Furia, I'm picking up the op. After Quesarado, Safe was the second highest player for Furia at Pro League. And I think that if you go back to the most recent NA RMR, you started to see that Safe, or prior to the Paris one, Safe's picking up a lot of op impact, right? That was kind of the uptick in his level, and I think the confidence he gained from that has just transitioned really nicely event after event. So Safe is in. Alongside Safe, we got to make up some money. Unfortunately, because of the MIBR price tags, we're working with slim pickings, but in an online environment versus the opening game of Evil Geniuses, art's going to come through. Ugh, it's sketchy. It is sketchy, but because this is all in on MIBR regardless, at that point, we're already taking risks. Why take your pedal off the metal? Full steam ahead. And with that steam, we run out of it. 179,000 down to the exact dollar. That is what allows us to get Nitro in an inclusion, which means we will have at least one player from the Liquid versus Nouns game. That is a potential bank for Nitro to at least just keep us alongside the other Liquid players or drafters. Here it is, the Pixies. Because there's a little bit of magic dust sprinkled in on this fantasy draft. This one's a little crazy, don't get me wrong. Multifragger, defender, main op, entry, and leader. Yes, Nitro will end up losing in my expectations, but if he does start winning, we're going to be banking on those leader points. That should gain us 15 points. And worst case, he only loses once, -2. Math. Yeah, magic and science. So here you have the Pixies for the North American Blast Showdown. And one more time, the Wizards for the European Blast Showdown. Thank you guys for watching. And remember, the 3 golden rules. 1, you probably know best. 2, talk that shit. Get down to the comments. Let me know what you guys think about this drafts and how your Pro League finals went. And of course, get ready because now I'll be getting onto the road and bringing you guys more Fantasyland videos from a mobile recording setup all across the world. Fantasyland never stops all year long. Oh yeah, and rule number 3, have fun.